commitment to empowering young people like us, really, it comes through very strongly.
So it started from, a small team, and now it has grown phenomenally. So that is really, really important.
In the first 2 years, the foundation has provided $10 million as seed capital funding to the 2,000 selected entrepreneurs across Africa to support their businesses. In addition, the foundation has invested over $5 million in building the technology infrastructure, content, and marketing of the entrepreneurship program.
I get to oversee the online platforms that will cover email marketing, the website, social media platforms. It's almost like a personal relationship with these entrepreneurs where I get to hear how the things we're doing in the foundation is transforming their lives.
And we're very appreciative to our over 500 mentors across the globe who stay up at night when necessary to support these entrepreneurs. So what we're trying to do is, to us, the essence of Elumelu Foundation, not just about giving capital, is giving capital, you learning how to manage capital, because if you manage $1, you learn and know how to manage $1 billion. The Elumelu Foundation has achieved a lot, and I see this in the faces of young Africans I meet with, I interact with when I travel to countries, who have seen the Elumelu program grow from first year 20,000 applicants, second year 45,000 applicants, and it's amazing what you see, the energy you see, the hope that has been brought back to these young Africans, the can-do spirit, and they are just yearning and eager to do more.
To select the best candidates, the foundation developed a clearly defined selection criteria against which the application will be evaluated. The foundation also engaged Accenture development partners to ensure transparent application selection process. Among those 2016 applicants, agriculture is remarkably still accounting for over a quarter of all sectors, plus female entrepreneurs now represent 36% of all applicants, up from 24% in 2015.
We all know the challenges and barriers that are faced by women in the world at large, and especially in our own environment, so they need to believe it's possible. Things are changing, they just have to be disciplined, they have to be focused, they have to believe that there's nothing they can't do.
When we did the first round of Elumelu entrepreneurs and we saw that female participation was less than 30, I wasn't happy about it. I personally tweeted on social media, I got a lot of people involved and said, let's increase the participation. And interestingly, in some northern African countries, some countries you would think that will not have female participation at all. You won't have female leading. So it's a fantastic development. I'm very happy about this.
To complete their training, the 2016 class came together at the annual Tony Elumelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Forum, where they connected with business leaders and policymakers.
It's the second time I attend this meeting. I feel even more fever and enthusiasm.
This forum is the largest gathering of Pan-African entrepreneurs. A fantastic opportunity for entrepreneurs to test and showcase their business ideas.
I want to provide rural areas in Gambia that have completely no electricity, access to electricity, and that's through solar home systems.
We are into branding, digital marketing, and consulting.
Restaurant of Beauty is all about creativity out of our African prints.
We show the world the beauty in Nigeria, the best destinations you can imagine.
My business sector is in water treatment and supply.
Je suis dans l'agro-business, dans la production et la transformation de tomates.
We want to see a Ghanaian interact with someone from South Africa, we want to see someone from North Africa interact with someone from Kenya, and let them build economic ties. Ultimately, people do business with those they are comfortable with those they know. And nations and people who have economic ties don't go to war. So we need to begin to unite Africa from this point of view. The future leaders of Africa must indeed have platforms that bring them together.
Focusing on the uniqueness of the Foundation's approach to entrepreneurship development, His Excellency Ernest Bai Koroma, President of Sierra Leone, hailed the program as a genuinely innovative approach to philanthropy in Africa.
Let me begin by commending Mr. Tony Elumelu for creating this great opportunity for Africa's young entrepreneurs. I applaud your initiative to bring together political and economic leaders to work towards widening the sustainable economic development in the continent.
As a trustee of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, my commitment to all of you is to keep the foundation and the program going, to support you on your entrepreneurship journey, to open doors for you. You must fulfill and indeed surpass the expectation of the Tony Elumelu Foundation that is investing so much in your future. This is an opportunity of a lifetime. Rise up to meet it. I wish you all a wonderful 2 days of learning and networking.
I want to take this opportunity to really welcome you all from the bottom of my heart. I cannot tell you what a great pleasure it is to see you physically, having lived with you for the last 9 months online. You are building the biggest network of African entrepreneurs and African businesses. You're here also to obviously learn from those who've been through the baptism of fire. All the speakers, the international delegations who have come, many of them have traveled at their own expense to come to Lagos because they can feel that African entrepreneurs are on the rise. Yeah, they have come to experience firsthand what it is to engage and speak with the entrepreneurs directly.
I'm inspired just being here. Okay, so my name is Emmaniel. I'm a Nollywood actress and filmmaker, female filmmaker. And you all know how difficult it is. You always have to work twice as hard, especially when you're working in an industry that is male-dominated. But you know, we keep doing what we're doing, and we keep excelling. And there will always be pushbacks, but don't let anything stop you. As long as you've identified that thing or those things that you want to do, just keep at it. There is not one day that goes by that I don't do something that would advance me in my craft.
If your goal, your dream, your idea is not daunting enough, that means it's too small for you. In all the things you need to do to grow, to capacitize, and to scale up, you need financial institutions. UBA is ready, is steady, and available to work with you all the way.
My assessment is entrepreneurship inheres in Africans. The movement of goods in hundreds of years ago from, say, Kano to North Africa and the Mediterranean could only have been entrepreneurship. So what the foundation has done is to catalyze the existing and nascent artisanal practices of Africans and to direct it into its area of focus.
This forum has been a stage for that. I've been able to network with so many great minds all over Africa. I got the opportunity to meet with the richest woman in Africa, Mrs. Alakija.
Many may see the grace and the glory, but they may not know the story. As an entrepreneur, never, ever take no for an answer. It took 15 years from the time that we were awarded the license in 1993 to 2008 when we struck first oil. This is one of the hallmarks of an entrepreneur, the ability to take risks. And to succeed, you must always make sure that you plan. Stay focused. And sooner than later, you will strike your oil. Thank you.
What kind of ancestor do you want to be? Money is not what's going to answer that question. Money is a means to an end. If you are African and you're not talking 100 years ahead of yourself in this world, you have failed. If you think that you can be wealthy and 10 people around you are going to be poor, you are in trouble. You have to make sure that you create ways in which all the people around you are growing as you are growing.
And when I was growing up, we used to revert to the mantra of the African forefathers: Sankara, Nkrumah, Nyerere, Nasser, Mandela. They had a vision for an Africa where Africans were creating African solutions to African problems. Almost 60 years later, you are living that mantra. You are here today because you are creating African solutions to African problems.
I see myself in their eyes, and I'm like, wow, it reminds me of like a few years back I was. And I know what it means to have someone sit with upcoming entrepreneurs and share his experience with them and make them relate to him.
We realize and recognize that in these parts of the world, we have a bit of a disadvantage. I can't go and meet my uncle and tell him, 3 angels appeared to me, I saw this, blah, 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 and I need $10,000. So that base infrastructure that is required to give entrepreneurs a boost is the reason why we have this program. And it's important that you take advantage of that money because it's the seed. I know people in the last set that used the capital that we provided well. I also know people who did not use the capital that we provided well. The difference for me between the two, it boils down to how well you take the things you've learned in the last couple of months. A lot of planning, a lot of discipline, right? And you being focused on what you want to do. Believe me, you can do a lot with the $10,000 if you plan well. Cash is king. And in order for you to generate cash, you need to create value.
With this, I have a vision, I have a really defined value proposition, and I believe that in the next 5 years, we'll be able to cover the whole of Africa.
I was a polo player till about a year ago, and I wanted to come back to Nigeria, and so I wanted to build a polo club, and then I went to the banks the first time to try to get a loan. And I was told that it's 29% interest rate, and I was like, that's ridiculous. And so we wanted to build something to help entrepreneurs. And so we decided to look into crowdfunding, which equity crowdfunding. And we started a platform called Malike. And so from trying to build a polo club, I ended up building a finance company. So sometimes when you're frustrated with something, just come up with something to solve it yourself.
There are more and more funding opportunities in the last few years, but what it lacks is the empowerment of entrepreneurs. We need to have more entrepreneurs, more risk-taking, young people that are willing to forego a well-paid job in a multinational organization in order to go and start their own companies.
I am Group CEO at United Capital PLC. We're a leading African investment banking group. So in a couple of years' time, when your businesses continue to grow as they are growing, and you want to raise capital from the capital market, we will be available to advise you. And we are currently engaging with the Elumelu Foundation with a view to having incubation fund as a solution in the near future for entrepreneurs like yourselves.
You see, my job was a parachute. So I said, you know what? Cut the damn parachute and just jump. I wanted that parachute gone because it was hit or miss. So people kept on saying it wasn't going to work when I first started, but I believed that it was going to work. When people say, why do you have partners and how do you choose the partners? And some people say they've been cheated before. Have you ever been cheated before? Put up your hand. Have you ever cheated before? So you see that errors are made and mistakes are made. I knew I didn't know it all by myself. So maybe the first lesson is that you need to understand that everybody has the strengths and the weaknesses. Because you see, sometimes you have to give up something to get something that is bigger eventually.
It's my pleasure to introduce to you the two general overseers of the marketing ministries.
I'll be talking to you today on the topic, the softer side of selling. Listening is at the core of empathy. And you know, salesmen and women, sometimes we don't listen because we have our products ready-made and we want to shove it down the customer's throat. When a customer is saying something you know is right, that your product or service is not able to offer, integrity says, oh, you're actually right, but I'm going to go back and do some research.
There are people that have acted better movies, but we didn't know about them. There are people that have better products, but nobody knows about them. So selling is fundamental. In fact, your first title, thank you, your first title is the Chief Marketing and Sales Officer.
For instance, you're selling software as service and you've not launched into the market. How do you substantiate?
Have you bought books? You don't know the author and all you did was look behind the book to see what others have said about it. And the book had not come out. But in that process, they get people to read and make what? Comments. So in your beta testing phase, you can give somebody to say, test this product, tell me what you think. Do you mind if I use your testimonial? That is credibility that you need in order to sell your product. Thank you.
Based on the fact that all products have some level of flaws, how do I present the information to the customer?
Focus on your strengths. Products are not perfect, services are not perfect, but focus on your strengths. Don't talk about the weaknesses. However, if they bring it up, you have to be honest.
Sir Chika Onya, can you be my mentor? Immediately.
The great news about somebody like me, I never turn a request like that down. So the answer is in the affirmative, yes. And that's immediately.
He talked about the soft part of sales, and I'm into soft skills. So he kind of helped to reorientate my idea about my business, and I feel that with such people like that in the industry of sales, marketing, and training, I think my kind of industry has a potential in Nigeria, in Africa, and of course in my local community.
And after each session, breaks and sector-specific discussions are also key for entrepreneurs to create opportunities for knowledge sharing, collaboration, and development of their business ideas.
Up to 30% of African medical drugs are counterfeit. Now, I came up with a system where in every point of sale, they check the legitimacy of that product, which again brings the problem. Why is it that when we deliver these medical products, everyone questions it, like, is it legitimate now? Are you guys okay?
I'm a consultant medical entrepreneur. I want to solve one of your problems.
I've been able to mingle with people in my field of business. And so this forum has availed me of the opportunity to meet other entrepreneurs who, at the end of the day, would supply me floating fish pellets. And I'll be able to subsidize my cost of production. What more can I ask for?
All entrepreneurs are either technology enabled or they are tech entrepreneurs, yeah? Companies like Microsoft, Google, all of the tech companies need talent, and Africa is a home for the new ICT talent, yeah?
Shani is the Nigeria director for Andala. When Zuckerberg came to Nigeria, the $25 million he invested in was all over the news. So share some nuggets, even if you're not going to share some dollars.
I've worked within software, outside of software, big company, small company. I've started businesses from scratch, and then I've also helped to grow and advise companies. The things I've learned that are extremely important. The first one is around building for a purpose. Statistics show that 40% of employees around the world have no idea what their company's mission statement is. So they go to work every day, but they have no idea why they're there. On the flip side, when you look at companies whose employees do know their mission statement, they have a 30% higher performance on average than their peers. And I think one thing that the biggest driver of success for Andela is the fact that everybody at Andela knows our single purpose. It is to create the future leaders of Africa. The second is around hiring a team that is fit for purpose. If you look at the people that work at Andela today, we have super geeks that just want to code. We have people whose dream and passion is to build amazing products. We have people who actually want to lead. We have people who want to do operations. So our interview process is one of the most rigorous I've seen. I just want to say yes, maybe you applied. But it's deliberately so, because each time you bring a new person into your team, you're basically changing the course of your company, right? So imagine putting Messi or Ronaldo as goalkeeper. They'll either leave or they won't perform.
Now, I am going to call on Mr. Obinna Ezeke, and he needs no further introduction. I just need to say waka now.
My experience booking a flight here was actually terrible. I had to go to the airline's office. I didn't really have a bank account in Nigeria, so I had to transfer money in to my friend's account, my cousin's account. I had to get the money cash. The whole process was very tedious and lacked transparency. So I did a lot of study, and I tell people in this room, the entrepreneurs, if you're ever going to go into anything, you must actually spend a lot of time studying about the field in which you operate. You have to benchmark yourself against the best in the world. The most important thing is to find a solution for your own local community. So when we started building Wakana, it was about finding a solution for what the issues that the Nigerian traveler faced.
I have a challenge. I am the co-founder of InnoCrave Solution. We're bringing green technology cleaning to Africa. Our technology is steam technology at its best. Imagine you cleaning your car, no water on the floor, no soap, no chemicals, and it's better than the conventional way. But guess what? The people in Kano, they see it and they're like, no water, no soap. Without water, without soap, it's not clean. So how do you use new technology to convince a developing market?
I think you don't force new technology down people's throats. There is what you call the new technology adoption life cycle. There are different people who are prone at different points in time to the new technology that you're bringing to the market. In my case, some people see online grocery shopping and immediately warm up to it. So what you're supposed to do is to identify those people and go after them. You have to think about who you're reaching and focus on those. As you saturate them, you move to the next segment and gradually work your way through.
This platform kind of gives a leverage to want to do more, think more, create innovative solutions and value for businesses all around Africa, all around Nigeria, and as far as it can get.
Online collection allows payments by anybody from any part of the world to make payments to you in your own currency where you are doing business. So I can be in Ghana selling cocoa to people in Nigeria or Uganda or Kenya and be collecting my money in cedis, even though the Kenyan just paid me in shillings. The system has capability to convert to the currency that you can use to continue to do your business. And you can also have a bank like UBA that can allow you to use all other bank branches to take cash collection for you. And you will have line of sight to electronic record of such collections. And at this point, I want to wish you excellent learning through the session to become good Afro-capitalists.
First, we need to understand the philosophy of Afro-capitalism. This is realizing first that the private sector has a role to play in the development of our continent. And a call, therefore, realizing this, that the private sector must come forward and be involved. For so long, we've been blaming government for everything. But okay, let's team up, bring resources together. And it's a call on the private sector to invest long-term in key sectors of the economy that can help to drive the economy, help to transform the economy, while creating economic profit and social wealth for everyone. So if you make or we make an investment in the power sector, there's profit motive, but at the same time, it helps to improve access to electricity on the continent, which has a lot of positive externalities for everyone, which will help entrepreneurs to succeed.
Afro-capitalism advocates for the private sector in Africa to take the lead, private sector including you entrepreneurs, to invest long-term in strategic sectors. Strategic sectors meaning that your focus is not only on extractives, your focus is not only on how much can I make in 1 year, in 30 days. Strategic sectors meaning that your capital deployment is patient. You're prepared to create not only economic profits, but social good, social prosperity, social wealth in the process. And our founder has been able to illustrate, prove, exemplify that you can do those two things at the same time. You can create social good while making record high profits. I invite you to transform the world through Afro-capitalism.
So at S Holdings, for us, we know that we have to be profitable, But more importantly, we know we have to impart mankind, humanity, in a sustainable fashion. What we do through the Tony Elumelu Foundation is to make sure that this economic philosophy that will help us to develop as a continent is inculcated in the minds of young entrepreneurs who are coming up. And if you look at our eligibility criteria, we always ask people to tell us, if you look at the SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, we say, tell us which of them that your initiative will be able to address.
It's amazing what they've achieved in just such a short time. Just because they got that seed capital and the structures in place, they now understood how to do their business plan properly, the marketing, the networking. They've seen the importance of all those aspects of their business, and they're very successful. So I really do believe that if we continue this as we are going to for the next 8 years, we should create our 1 million jobs.
Before we joined the Tony Elumelu Foundation, we had a turnover of $20,000, $30,000, and we saved a lot of money. We took the money that we had from Tony Elumelu and we invested wisely, and today we did $1.6 million last year. Thank you. Last year this time I was sitting somewhere around here, and you know, all I had was a dream, and when I heard all the speakers up here, I was like, you know what? I'm going to make something of myself. I'm going to do what I can to get my business off the ground and be disciplined at it. And today here I am talking to you. So a lot can happen in a year, right?
I think back then I was young and naive, you know. I failed many times. And I went through the 12 weeks training program. And then just like you, we came for the boot camp. And then suddenly everything started making sense.
When I tell people my business is a year old, they are like, wow, are you sure? But the secret is the training I got from Tony Elumelu Foundation. And I'm to them. My web developer is a fellow Tony Elumelu entrepreneur. Jamal, I saw him around. Yes, he's over there. He's my web developer. So he has been able to
Why we have teamed up with other leaders. You have Obasanjo there, you have the president of Sierra Leone, President Koroma. You have some state governors from Nigeria, Zinzu.
Let me give you a flavor of some of the reforms that we've done to support entrepreneurs like yourselves. It takes only 6 hours to start a business in Rwanda, and it's free. You entrepreneurs, your time is valuable. We would rather have you sitting and coming up with good ideas and implementing them, not running through government bureaucracy. Ultimately, our goal is to nurture entrepreneurs who have the courage to go beyond conventional methods of doing business. This is why we very much commend the Tony Elumelu Entrepreneurship Program. Through such initiatives, we can uphold the vision of a bright future for all and unlock our greatest potential. Thank you.
I have no doubt that the weight of this foundation behind you, success is guaranteed. With insecurity and corruption also being tackled, the enabling environment is being created for businesses to thrive in the country. We hope when the time is ripe, young entrepreneurs like you will take advantage of these opportunities.
Abia is unarguably the SME capital of Nigeria because we have 100,000 young men doing shoes, and they have asked me to tell you that just this week they got the first order this year to supply 50,000 pairs of shoes to the Nigerian Armed Forces. On this note, once again, I want to charge you like young eaglets to go forth and conquer the world bearing the signal of excellence by Tony Elumelu. Thank you and God bless you.
It is your genius and talent that have brought you here. But to become champions and successful businessmen, you will have to again work and work hard. And in your quest to success, ask yourself, how can I, through what I have decided to do, impact my environment? What can I possibly bring to my community? This is the prototype of entrepreneurs that I dream of for my continent. Thank you, Chairman Elumelu, for sharing your light so that African youth can shine. Thank you very much. Good luck to you, and God bless you. Thank you.
I think they can certainly begin to evangelize entrepreneurship and really talk about it positively. The place of the entrepreneur in the Indian society and economy has changed, yeah? And that's because the government has really put a lot of effort in making it, in celebrating entrepreneurship, in the same way as America does it, yeah? Similarly across Africa, they should take a leaf out of Tony Elumelu's book, who celebrates entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs.
And look at, again, the president of Sierra Leone. You cancelled all appointments and flew to Nigeria to be with these entrepreneurs. Why? He realized, like us, the future of Africa lies in these young ones.
I am honored to be part of this revolution of self-reliance and innovation in Africa. Infrastructural development is central to Africa's march to economic growth. My government has embarked on extensive infrastructural development to improve on our roads, access to energy, water supply, the internet, and other vital enablers that support the efficient operations of business. To all of this year's awardees, a hearty congratulations. I hope that among you, we will have the new Tony Elumelu in Africa.
Tony and Mrs. Elumelu, I think we all owe you a debt of gratitude. We have to make doing business in Nigeria very, very easy. We have to create conducive environment for people to want to do business here. We have to invite them. We have to induce them. We have to make them wanting to come to Nigeria.
You are a very interesting generation. You are a digital generation. You are a disrupting generation. But you are not the average millennial. You are African millennials, which is something different. Because in terms of innovation, We are number one in some technological niches. We are number one in digital payments. We are number one in some social usage in health. You will be the first generation to be able to say, through all your own efforts, Africa is now first in many domains.
I think we can't thank Mr. Tony Elumelu enough. Yesterday, we were in the same room with the President of Sierra Leone, Prime Minister, Nigeria, ex-president, and all these wonderful, young and energetic Africans. We can't thank him enough, and we are promising him that we are not going to let him down.
This week, Lagos is the entrepreneurship capital of Africa. The reason we are gathered here today is to fulfill the two Tony Elumelu Foundation promises. The first promise is to invest $100 million to identify, train, mentor, and seed 30,000 of you in 10 years. The second is to improve the enabling environment for all African entrepreneurs, and I'm happy Lerato and our leaders have talked about this. It's a continuing process. We want to create our own Mark Zuckerberg from Africa in you. My heart still carries with me the entrepreneurs behind the 65,000 ideas we couldn't select. We need to come together to do something about it. No one but us will develop Africa, so we need to look within, especially those who are blessed and endowed, to see how we can share prosperity. Because ultimately, it is not how much we have in our bank account that counts. What counts, when we are gone from this world, is the legacy we leave behind. The way we give must be such that helps us to create self-sufficiency, self-independence, self-dignity, that helps us to become fishermen and not keeping up perpetually begging or waiting for the next handout to come.
It's been fun, it's been learning field, and it's been beautiful.
We have to take our dreams now back to our countries and make them into reality.
On a tous le même idéal, c'est de construire l'Afrique.
Profite pour aussi encourager mes frères, les autres entrepreneurs africains, les startups, de faire comme nous.
Tony Elumelu trouxe para mim, como para todos os companheiros aqui, esperança. Eu passei 5 anos a lutar para desenvolver o meu negócio, mas o financiamento é muito difícil e com a oportunidade em Tony Elumelu Foundation veio trazer esperança.
With the resources that's made available to me, I'm going to work hard to also help other Africans in my community in Liberia, where I reside and do business, so that they can be able to have the same access and be better and stand as their own.
Et d'ici 10 ans, Inch'Allah, on sera une grande multinationale qui transforme le monde.
I hear stories of how people are transforming their communities already. And to me, that's a true validation of what the foundation is doing, a validation also of our chosen approach to intervene. So the foundation should be satisfied that we indeed have orchestrated a movement on the continent of entrepreneurship.
And this movement continues to gain momentum each year with the 3rd round of the Tony Elumelu Foundation Entrepreneurship Program receiving from 54 African countries a staggering total of 93,000 applications, including 39% of female entrepreneurs. Just as in 2015 and 2016, agriculture is still decidedly leading the sectors with 27%.
92,000 hopes have been dashed, so to speak. It doesn't leave us happy. We wish we had more. If we had more, we would even do more, we take more. And to those people I say, don't give up. The Tony Elumelu Foundation, myself, we're reaching out to the rest of the world and fellow Africans too who are endowed to come and take some from this pool of 92,000 who are not successful. We need to do something about this, because imagine if we were able to assist these 93,000 people to become entrepreneurs. In 10 years' time, even if 10% succeed, big, that would be transformational for the country.
About 10 more minutes. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for being here this morning. It's really going to be worth the wait. Thank you so much. So another 10 minutes. We'll be right back. Thank you very much. Hello. Hello, everybody. Hello once again. So we're about to commence. The French president will be here in a couple of minutes. Can we all get seated, please? Can we all take our seats? Thank you very much. Thank you. And thanks for your patience. Thanks for waiting. Merci beaucoup. Il arrivera dans 5 minutes. Merci tout le monde. Il y a des écouteurs pour ceux qui en ont besoin. On a beaucoup d'écouteurs. We've got headphones for those who need them for French and English and translation. So please let us know if you need some headphones for translation. So we're going to be starting in a few minutes. Thank you again for your patience, and we apologize for the delay. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has finally arrived. So I am announcing that the French President, Monsieur Emmanuel Macron, is here with our founder and chairman, Mr. Tony Elumelu. Mesdames et messieurs, ils sont arrivés. Notre fondateur, Monsieur Elumelu, et le président de la République française, Monsieur Emmanuel Macron. Mettez au début. Please stand up and welcome them, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience.
Please, let's be seated. Mr. President, is it good afternoon? Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to this interactive forum. I and the Tony Elumelu Foundation are happy to host this interactive forum with the President. President is no stranger to Nigeria. He's no stranger to Nigerians. He lived and worked in Nigeria for some time. I was going to ask you, but let me now ask formally to join me in welcoming him formally back to Nigeria. Equally importantly is the fact that the President is not new to entrepreneurship. He understands your language. He understands entrepreneurship ecosystem. He understands how it works. He understands the imperative for success. He understands what you go through, your frustrations, your aspirations, your yearnings, your ambitions, your dreams. And he continues, since he became president, to work hard to support entrepreneurs in France and across the world, Africa in particular. In May, I think, or early June, I was opportune to be one of the global leaders he invited to Élysée, the French government house, to talk about technology for good, because he realizes the significance and importance of technology in shaping and improving humanity in the 21st century, especially in this age of artificial intelligence. At the forum, he spoke to all the giant leaders in the world today in this space. In my humble remarks, I did say, I thank Mr. President for putting me on the table to advocate or speak on your behalf, young African entrepreneurs. And more importantly, I did say that it should be technology for good and technology for all. And I'm happy that Mr. President is here in Nigeria, in Africa, to again demonstrate his love for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship. Again, I want us to clap for Mr. President for this. So you have here with us a president, a rare politician that believes in you. He believes in young entrepreneurs. He believes in your dreams. He believes in your aspirations. And he works hard to make it happen.
President, you have here Africa's entrepreneurial talent. You don't get them better. These young men and women, they are Africans at heart. They are energetic. They are extremely hardworking. They want to succeed. They know what their success means for Africa, but they are held back. And I hope that in the course of the interaction here and dialogue, and your visit this time, and also your visit across Africa, and your interaction with African leaders, that we can achieve one thing, and that is how to prioritize our youth, how to realize that the future of Africa belongs to them. I continue to preach and advocate that entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs, and those they inspire are the lifeblood of Africa's transformation. And you share this too. And that is why the Tony Elumelu Foundation decided to support young Africans with $100 million over a period of 10 years to create 10,000 African entrepreneurs. We've done 4,000, we have 6,000 to go. And we believe, and we speak to our friends, that it takes two things. These young Africans are ready to succeed. And they realize that their success is not just success for themselves, but success for the entire community. We need our government to prioritize it. And we also need some of us in the private sector to realize that they need, just as we had, democratization of luck, access to opportunities. They need all of us to support them. And they need us to invest in their future so that collectively all of us can make Africa great. I say to my colleagues and also friends that we are not defined by the resources or the bank account that we have, balances we have in our bank accounts. What defines us ultimately is the kind of impact on humanity that we're able to make, the kind of legacy that we leave in turning lives. So I'm happy that you're here. These young Africans, they want to listen to you, Mr. President. They want to be inspired by you. And we have them, Anglophone, Francophone, all in this room from 54 African countries. They like your story. They want to hear how you became president of France at the age of 39. So that they too can be presidents and even beyond that. Mr. President, I believe and strongly, and not just me, many people, you have spoken to Africans with a new voice. We identify with that new voice, we like that new voice. Today, I believe that this forum will be interactive and provide a unique opportunity for us to achieve a few things. One, it will be nice for our political leaders here in Africa to understand the potent powers, the importance of people we have in this room and those who are not even in this room, because our demographic structure, we have over 60% of our people who are under the age of 30. And two, we also like France and the rest of the world to know that in Africa, 21st century, there's a lot more about Africa than Africa that they used to know. We have new narratives on Africa. Hopefully you hear it today and beyond. And also, Africa is now a home of opportunities. We want the world to see us as a continent of opportunity. So, Mr. President, we like your voice, we like your tone. I welcome you to Nigeria and to Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy and honored to be here with you. I recognize some friends in this room. I don't want to deliver a long speech. I think it's much more, an interaction. But let me just convey a few convictions. The very first one is about Africa. You just told it, Tony. Things are changing. And Africa has some new leaders arriving, decided to totally change and reframe the whole continent. But Africa is young. Young. I mean, in this state, 2/3 of the population is under 35. Yes. In Lagos State. And this state is just the 5th economy of Africa. Just Lagos State. I don't even speak about Nigeria. And these young people, this new generation, has a lot of responsibility and opportunities to build. And indeed, what I want to build with you is this new narrative you mentioned. I mean, it's obviously to work from a political point of view on all these security and defense issues, which are absolutely critical to Africa. But as well to build through entrepreneurship, economy, digital, culture, sports. And we were yesterday at the shrine exactly for the same reason. And Femi should be around.
Femi Kuti, are you here?
I think he's an entrepreneur.
Femi, where are you?
I mean, it's part of the same message and the same narrative, which is to say, nobody has to decide for our future. We are the one to decide. Nobody has to lecture us, but which means that we have to take our responsibility. Think about the legacy, the sustainability of our deeds, and how we share, how we develop our countries. And we can revert on that, obviously, during the discussion. But this new narrative is just to say Africa is the one to decide for Africa, to explain about Africa, and to create its own model of entrepreneurship, but its own culture, and to explain it to the rest of the world. And not just to be part of a globalization whose adjustments were always made despite of people in a certain way. So this new narrative is to be built now. And I do believe it's your responsibility. And I do believe it's good for Africa and it's good for France. Because if Africa doesn't succeed, France and Europe will never succeed on the long run. For two very simple reasons. Europe is not an island, and all this migration crisis, and we can revert on it if you want, is exactly due to the fact that we have a common destiny. And second, because we have a very important African diaspora in France, in the rest of Europe, and they cannot live and develop themselves and succeed in France or in Europe if in their country people don't succeed. That's this new narrative, and it was my first message. The second one is that entrepreneurship and innovation is part of the answer. It's part of the answer because that's the best way to access to responsibility and to change everything when you are young and you want to do it. Innovation is just about change. Smart people, when they are in charge, are obsessed by innovation because they want to reinvent themselves. But new people, young people, should be obsessed by innovation because this is the way to access. This is the only way when you're not a player, not an insider, to enter into the game and to succeed. To disrupt the insider, to become part of the game. Innovation is just about how to invent or reinvent something which can succeed, make your life better, and the life of your family and people around you better. And I mean, there is no cap for innovation, except the one you have in your mind. There is no cap. Innovation is just precisely all about how to create and at the same time to destroy past activities when it doesn't make sense. But how to create new things, new perspectives, and provide new opportunity to young people. I mean, if I'm here today, it's just because I wanted to change a lot of things, and I decided to innovate and take my risk in political life. I never asked for the permission to do so. And guess what? Even when I tried to get some advice from the insiders of this game, the first advice was, you should wait a little bit. Wait a little bit. At a point of time, it will be for you. But not now. Never follow this kind of advice. So, if you want to do it, if you want to change this world, if you want to change your country, if you believe in your innovation, in your project, just make it feasible, just create, just dare, and just do it right now. That's about innovation. And that's part of the answer for this continent and this country. You have massive young people. And part of their future will be through this innovation. And that's why we decided to launch this Digital Africa initiative, which means to create a sort of African platform for digital. And not to explain people, to lecture people what they should do. I mean, I'm not the one to have definitely the best possible idea for Nigeria or Lagos. I mean, some entrepreneurs had some of them, and it seems that even crazy ideas are becoming reality. So, I mean, it's good. I saw the island just in front of the hotel. But you are the one to have the right decisions and the right ideas for your country, for what is good for your people, which kind of innovation could succeed, which kind of innovation could find its market. So Digital Africa is precisely this platform where we will connect. So you have here, and that's a website. And so, thank you. It's part of the advisory board for Africa. And it's just a bag, but it's bag, ideas, and money. And what we want to do is to connect people and to allow people with ideas and innovation to scale them. Because a lot of things are a question of scale. How to accelerate, get access to market, get access to financing, being connected with other people with the same kind of ideas, improve your ideas and your innovation thanks to that. And I think it's good because that's the best way to work between startups all around Africa. But as well to work with investors and with... I think it's a good showcase. And precisely to work with large companies, with business angels. And I want to thank all the large caps present in this room coming from Nigeria and France. Some of you made a long trip to be here, and I think it's very important because for me, these large corporates, these large foreign corporates, some of them work already with you, but a lot of them...
Like Total.
Yeah. But they can be part of this ecosystem as well, and be part precisely of how to finance and how to work and innovate with African startups and this new digital Africa. Because it's good for them as well. Because it's how to reinvent their model, their brand in Africa. And it's good for you because it will provide a lot of opportunities for young people. My third and last remark is obviously that part of this answer we are discussing for Africa and this new narrative is obviously about innovation and disruption, but as well about, more broadly, private sector. Private sector is part of the answer. Because private sector could provide a better access to people. Much better than political life, I have to confess. And when you want to get access to responsibility, make your family happy, have a better life, you need this access, and you need this access to private sector. I'm a strong believer in the African private sector. And
I will clap for that.
Because I think that's the best way by African business people, for African people, to change the continent and change the countries, and to make it for people, and not for foreign business, with foreign business, despite of your people. Even if a few people can make their profits with the classical players. I think the unique way to succeed is to have a strong private sector on the ground, being developed here, because this is the only way to have an inclusive growth, which means to have an actual growth, a sustainable growth on the ground, to build middle classes in the different countries. These middle classes will buy a lot of products which will allow other African players to develop their business and create new businesses, which will be the only way to have a sustainable political life. Because when people get access to jobs, to better life, I mean, the political life is totally different because the whole society is much more inclusive. And it's part of this African success. That's why we launched another initiative for African private sector, which is the fact that we decided to invest 1 billion euro, which means 500 billion naira under your control, in the African private sector through the French Development Agency.
That's him, Remy. That's him, yeah.
Exactly. Through the French Development Agency, which is part of Digital Africa as well, obviously, and different French structures. And we want now to gather a lot of other players, a lot of African and European tycoons, business angels, and business players to build this platform, to develop, leverage, and accelerate private sector in Africa. That's it. I don't want to be longer. I will answer all your questions, but that's the three messages I wanted to convey for you today. I believe in this new narrative, in innovation, and in the private sector. Thank you, Tony. Thank you. But I want to.
So, ladies and gentlemen, where do we start from? So we have a president is facing this way. So, yeah, let's get the first shot. We can't hear you. You tell us your name, your organization, or your business, and your country. Then you ask your question. You can have this.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Elumelu. My name is Princess Adeyinka Tekena. I'm the founder of Happy Coffee. This was a business I started after I received my first grant in 2015 from the Elumelu Foundation. It will interest you, from my studies, I found out that there is a new trend of populism growing in continental Europe. And we also found out that there are a lot of trade wars going on amongst competing nations, right? I want to find out from you, is global trade dead as we know it? That's number one. Number two, I want to find out if entrepreneurs like myself in Africa just need to look inwards into African markets. Because you and I know that Europe is close to African businesses and African markets. Will those markets ever open up to us? Thank you.
I mean, your first question is a very complicated one, but it's true that today you have a rise of extremisms, but not just on the economic side. What you call populists is in fact a lot of extremes. And you have indeed what we definitely should call a beginning of a trade war between some developed countries, largely triggered by the US decision. If you look at the roots of these different features and phenomena, I think I could tell you that it's due to anxiety of middle classes in Europe. Let me explain. I think we made a mistake, a collective mistake during the past decades. We developed a globalization made for everybody, because when you look at the figures, we decrease poverty and inequalities, by the way, at the scale of the planet. At a global scale, this globalization was positive. But you had a big acceleration of this globalization in terms of free trading movements, and you have much more financialized and digitalized globalization. And the consequence of this new phenomenon in acceleration, concentration of wealth on the 1%, the top 1% of people. And in Europe, everywhere, those who had the feeling, in Europe and in the US, by the way, so in all the Western world, those who had the feeling they were the potential victim of this globalization were middle classes. Middle classes became feared by migration issues, by terrorism and new risks. They are the first one to be feared like that. And that's because of that you have such a race of extremes everywhere in Europe. And this push coming from some governments and some people to say now we will build walls and we will close everything. Obviously it's not sustainable, but they use it, they manipulate this anxiety, which means that we have to fix the situation. And I can revert on it during the discussion if I have other questions on migration. I have a strategy for that, but this strategy is not just to build a wall. But we have to listen to this anxiety coming from middle classes, which means that if we want on the long run to fix it, we need to provide this new narrative. We need more Africans to succeed in Africa and more Europeans. And we need more Europeans to have a positive view about Africa. The lose-lose game. The lose-lose game is to have extremists in Europe playing on fears and sometimes on racism and saying African people are losers, they want to invade us, and is to have African people saying it's impossible to succeed in my country, I have to reach Europe even taking the most crazy risks. And by the way, making smugglers richer and richer. That's a lose-lose game. I do believe in a win-win game, which is to say, let's help Africa to succeed. Let's provide new hope for African youth in Africa. And let's explain European people that it's part of the same story and the common destiny, and increase common circulation and cross common experiences. Trade is part of it, and trade war has the same trigger. Middle classes in America thought they were the first victims of globalization because it destroyed jobs in industry. And I think trade war is a bad answer. Is how to close the countries and how to build new tariffs, new barriers. You will increase costs, kill jobs, and it doesn't fix the issue for middle classes. So I do believe that we can build something much more, I would say, inclusive for middle classes in Europe and in the Western world. You can explain your people, we can refound this globalization to have people succeeding and taking their part of the success, which is the best possible answer. To address your third point and the end of your question, I do believe that we will manage basically to fix at a point of time this trade war. I think that's a necessity and the interest of everybody. And that's why I do believe that's the right perspective for African entrepreneurs, for European entrepreneurs, is to pursue precisely this cross-market experience, this access to other markets, and this trade developments. The new generation of trade developments should be more respectful about social issues, environmental issues, and obviously, new trade opportunities will not be allowed if it's used to take opportunities in a country without taking care of the people. But that's why I do believe that entrepreneurs like you, in your sector, obviously have African perspectives, but European perspectives as well. Because, first, if your business, I'm sorry, I didn't test your product, but if the product is good, it will succeed. But we will open access for people like you. Come. We will open access for people like you. And if you provide a positive image, a positive brand, and it seems to be come. I'm sorry, you have stairs. So what is your product?
So 17 states in Nigeria can grow coffee. Only 2 are growing presently. I work with farmers in Taraba to ensure that an average Nigerian has access to locally grown coffee. We need to rejuvenate our farms, and we need to create new farms for the future.
Thank you. And this business makes sense. I didn't taste the coffee. I will. But it makes sense because it provides opportunity here for farmers and jobs. It will help you, you will create job in order precisely to trade this coffee and these coffee beans. And because it makes sense and because the message is positive, the brand could be very strong. And I don't believe one says that an innovation or a brand could be successful if the message and the values don't make sense. And that's why you have a lot of trade opportunities in Africa and in Europe because of that. Because it makes sense. And the problem we have in a lot of countries, it's true for Europe as well and in France. Sometimes we develop some sectors, some business with arrangements with our values. We have to change. We are changing. We will help these companies to change. You will succeed, I'm sure.
Thank you. Clap again, please, for this. So let's hear from this segment.
Good afternoon. My name is Dikbo Oyewole, Sentinel Consulting. It's a strategy consulting firm for SMEs, and it's in Nigeria. Mr. President, you essentially broke the political mold in France, and some will say globally. What is your advice to young emerging leaders in business, politics, social enterprise, who are looking to make a difference both locally and globally?
I would say first, in a nutshell, and I told exactly the same yesterday at the shrine, there is no advice. That's the very first one. Take your risk. Take your risk. It seems to be a joke, but it's serious. There is no one model or one recipe to succeed in politics, in economy, in culture, and so on. I think the first thing is to be sincere and to take the part of your own risk. There is no success without being a risk taker. No success. If you just want to follow a model, another model, or a recipe, you can be happy. You can have your part. You can succeed as an employee, you can have a very beautiful life. But if you want to be a leader, if you want to create, if you want to be a business leader and so on, you have, in a certain way, to be a front runner. So you have to take your risk. My second advice, except the first one that there is no advice, would be never stop at the first failure. Because when you try, you fail. You can fail. If you don't fail, you become dangerous for yourself. It's just because it means it will happen. So be obsessed by the potential failure, but always learn for your own failures. But when you fail, it's not so important. I failed a lot of time. I failed in different fields. I didn't want to become a politician. I didn't want to even become president. I mean, it's just, I think the main reason is probably first because I learned from my failures and because too many people told me it was impossible. So the job, I think our job, governments, business angels and so on, is to reduce the cost of failure for people like you. But for you, accept to fail. And third, never believe that your success can just be your success. If you don't have a vision which is sustainable for everybody around you, you are making a mistake. Your generation of leaders in economy, in politics and so on, will be a generation of leaders with a vision. Let me explain. I mean, 20 years ago it was possible to be a leader and to succeed with your business and living in the middle of crisis of poverty. It's no more sustainable. Because now people are connected. People are aware of everything. And 10, 15 years ago, being a leader meant when you were in Lagos, you had much more things to discuss with somebody in New York or in Paris than with somebody else in a close neighborhood. It's no more sustainable. Because at the point of time, it's where you leave this close neighborhood. Which means if through your business, through your politics, through your leadership, you don't have this inclusive vision. I mean, this vision where you have a vision for you, your business, what you are doing, being connected with the rest of the world, but for your people at home, for your close people. If you are not in a situation to explain these challenges to your neighbor, to your sister, to your family friend, you are making a mistake. So, have a vision is probably my third advice.
I like that, you know. Many times people ask me this question about me sharing my failures with them. And I always say, just like the president said here, yes, to share the failures is one thing. What's more important is lessons learned from failures. And you know, in business, it's not a linear journey. In entrepreneurship, you definitely have ups and downs. We have big gurus here. We have Shaguru can talk more about failures in business. We have the founder of Zenith Bank here, Jimovia. That's why in this we can talk about things like this. So failure is given in business, but you know you need to bounce back, resilience, learn from it, and make sure you don't repeat such failures again. Let's come to this side. Yes.
Sorry about that.
Could you repeat?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Elumelu. My name is Uchenna Okeze. I am Nigerian. I am a 2018 Tony Elumelu entrepreneur. I'm starting a business, a Yellow Pages business, an online Yellow Pages business that will help promote local businesses and local service providers. I would like to know what is France's stand on the European immigration crisis. What is your practical approach and solution?
That's a huge issue. Europe lived 3 years ago a first wave of immigration coming from Syria, Afghanistan, and this region, with a lot of people leaving their countries because of war, and they get asylum in Europe. It created a lot of tension because it's something to get more than 1 million people arriving in Europe and being protected, but that's a pressure, and it created some tensions like your colleague described them. Now, what we see and what we are experiencing is a new wave of immigration coming largely through Libya from Africa, and another one coming through Morocco and Spain from Africa as well. Let me say first that we should not mix everything. And I want to make two precisions. First, migration between Africa and Europe, it's not brand new. I mean, people are becoming crazy everywhere. I mean, for decades, we've been migrations between our continents. For decades. And our job is to integrate people, and where my country probably failed a little bit is because of a lack of political energy and a lack of development, collective development, and we will discuss that with a lot of some private sectors present in this room precisely. We didn't sufficiently integrate the African diaspora and new people arriving in France in its economy and being recognized. But for decades, in my country, we had migrations coming from Africa. Whole families and so on. So it's not new, it's not a crisis. I mean, and this diaspora is made by our common history and the fact that there is a common language with a lot of countries in Africa and a lot of common families and so on. So first, that's the first distinction. Let's stop with these crazy ideas. Migration in its own is a bad idea, or it's just a crisis. It's a global phenomenon. It always existed, and we have it. The second point is that when you speak about migration, I don't like the word, because first you speak about people. People who took a lot of risks through the desert or the Mediterranean Sea, losing their lives, living in very difficult situations, spending months, not to say years, in camps, being exploited by smugglers. But we have a distinction. Some of these people are eligible to asylum because they are in war in their country. And they are at risk because of their political ideas or because of their religion. And this one has to be protected in Europe. It's part of my constitution in France. So no question, these people will always be welcomed and protected because of the asylum rules. And on the other side, you have a lot of people leaving their countries and taking all these risks for economic reasons and because of the lack of economic perspective and opportunities. And these people, given the magnitude of this wave, cannot be accepted. At least all of them. You can accept part of them where it's sustainable for your economy and your country. But you are not due to protect them because they come from a country in peace. And if you look at the migration crisis, as we say, i.e. this new wave, which is diminishing, by the way, the peak of the wave was last year. You have people coming, some of them coming from Sudan, Eritrea. That's a crisis. Political difficulties, wars, and so on. But a large majority of people coming from Africa came from Senegal, Ivory Coast, Guinea, Nigeria. I mean, look at the situation. These countries are in a better situation than a decade ago. And people who are leaving their countries are not the very poor people of these countries. They are very often middle classes, low middle classes, where the family can pay in order for them to pay the smugglers and go to Europe. So in Europe we have crazy representation, crazy visions about that, because we mix everything. But what we have to do is obviously first to fight against smugglers. That's my top priority. That's what we do in Sahel. That's what we want to do with Libyan government. That's why we have to fix the Libyan situation. to stop that and to work with all the African countries to fight against smugglers, because they are the ones to live from that, from this crisis. And because the smugglers are closely linked to the terrorists. Where are the smugglers? Precisely in all these regions where you have Boko Haram, Acme, and all these crazy guys. They live with them. But more than that, the roots of this new wave, and the fact that these people came from the countries I mentioned, and not a very poor country without wars, is due to the fact that there is a lack of hope, a lack of opportunities. And for me, the in-depth, the sustainable answer is not just security and work, and it obviously is this work against smugglers, but that's a work with the different African governments and African Union to build a better future for this new generation. And what does it mean in a nutshell? First, we have to deal with demography. It was a taboo till now. I spoke about that 1 year ago. It was a huge scandal, especially in Europe. It was not allowed for a European leader to speak about demography, birth rate in a lot of countries. But I'm sorry to say that when you have 7, 8 children per woman, you can have a 5% growth. It's not, you will never end the fight against poverty. And guess what? And a lot of people trying to tell me, my friend, it's part of the African culture, you should not say that. In Europe, centuries ago, we had so many children. But ask your women, ask your ladies if this is their choices. If this is their free choices, I'm fine. But when this situation is due to forced marriage, when this situation is due to the decrease of education for women and girls, it's crazy. It's crazy. And that's why you have very, very bold leaders in Africa today. President Issoufou in Niger, for instance, he fought against forced marriage. He invested a lot on girls' education. That's the very first pillar. To me, I multiplied by 10 our investment on girls' education in Africa. And we need all of you because, that's the basics. Second, it's obviously, demography. Education for everybody. Primary, secondary school, universities. You have such a wave of young people. And a lack of universities. A lot of these young people, a lot of what we call these migrants, are just people in a situation not to go to universities in their country. So that's for the best reasons they decide to go to Europe. It's just the fact that they want to get access to school, to universities, they want to learn. The investment in education is very important. That's why we worked with President Macky Sall. And we increased together with a lot of commitments coming from all over the world for education, and especially education in Africa. Third, it's economic opportunities. It's business opportunities. It's involvement of private sectors. A lot of these people just want to get access to jobs and to live. Do you think it's a free choice, and that's a perspective, to make thousands of kilometers, to take all these risks, to have the perspective to live in a poor neighborhood in Europe with the privilege to send some money every month to your family home? It's crazy. Those who think it's a privilege are just crazy. What these people want is to succeed in their country. And they want to have the opportunity to do so. That's the actual solution. That's my view for that. It's a long-term perspective, but where we have to resist to emotions and short-term emotions. We have to resist to protect and get this message understandable for European middle classes to avoid a new gap. And we have to work with African governments, precisely to win these different battles.
You know, talking about migration, I totally agree with all your points, but the one I stamped 3 times is about economic access and opportunities. Because people who migrate, as you rightly said, don't do that because they want to do it. It's no fun to them, and they do it because of economic opportunity. And so we all, private sector, government, and Friends of Africa should work together and work hard to create economic hope and opportunity for our people. You know, last Christmas, Donald Duke here and his dear wife is one of our star leaders. And I was with them for Christmas, and they called one of their cooks who was giving us stories about how he tried to cross the Mediterranean, and it was almost impossible. How many days did he say, almost, did he say he spent in the bush? How many days? 3 months. Over a year in the bush to move from Benin to where? Italy. Or where? No, Libya or Italy? Italy. To move to Italy. Bolivia. His story was sad. And I wish such a person could come on national television to share his own experience with people. As you see, you know it all. People don't move because they want to move. It's because of hardship and lack of economic
But you know, what you say is very important. And saying you should go to the TV to explain is very important. I mean, it's difficult or always biased in a certain way for a European leader to say that. And it's even biased for my people because it's speaking about African realities. And a lot of people are mixing everything and a lot of their own representations. But the most useful thing, I think, to do is to fight against fake news and bad publicities made by smugglers, because what they want to do is to exploit lack of hope and opportunities, and they want to make themselves rich, that's the only point, by providing stories and crazy stories to these young people. And sharing these experiences at the TV and explaining that what is the reality of such a trip and that it's feasible to succeed here and have a job here is the best possible answer.
I agree. Thank you. Let's clap again for Mr. President. Let's come here. Go ahead. That must be Okoye.
Yes, sir. That's Mark Okoye.
Youngest commissioner in Nigeria?
Yes, sir.
You aspire to be youngest president too.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman of Tony Elumelu Foundation,
Take the microphone.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mark Okoye. I'm not a TEF entrepreneur, but I'm a TEF admirer for what you've done on the African continent in the areas of business and in the public sector, and in the private sector. But I share a few similarities with Mr. President. He used to be an investment banker. I was an investment banker. He took risks. I took a risk at 25. I went into public sector. By the time I turned 30, I was made the youngest commissioner appointed by Anambra State Governor, Governor Willie Obiano. So, sir, my questions are as follows. There's nothing too much on the policy side, but just to get to know you better and to get some insights of your story. It'd be nice to know what you classify as your biggest failures and your biggest successes. Why? Then the second question is, given your experience in the private sector, how have you been able to leverage that in the public sector? And would you advise young people here that it's good to get the best of both worlds before going into the public sector? Thank you very much.
It's always difficult to be lucid on yourself and to be in a situation to say what your main failure could be at a point of time. But I experienced some of them. I first wanted to become an academic. And I failed at the very beginning to do so. And it was probably a chance and an opportunity, because it pushed me towards some other perspective, and I became a civil servant. And after a few years, I became an investment banker, and after a few years, I became, I would not say a politician, but I mean, I became a minister, and afterwards, I ran for election. I think these very first failures, not to get access to my first perspective and what I had in mind, made me stronger. Made me stronger. Because it pushed me to reinvent something else, to try again. And as I told to your colleague, not just to be, I would say, the hostage of my own failure, and obsessed by that. And I think my main success is probably what I did right after. Your main success are those you don't see. But the fact that from a private point of view and a professional point of view, I reinvented right after what I wanted to do. And you can see this actual success just on the long run. This big success is not just an election. It's what you built before. And the consistency of what you built before. Because I have to say, my main bet when I ran for elections in France was I always made the assumptions, and I'm deeply convinced that people are smart and see everything. And a lot of classical politicians were used just to convey classical message of the party, I would say, to our people. And French people were perfectly aware of the situation, of the fact that the classical political life was framed in a crazy, following a crazy way. And they see when you are not sincere. And I think that's the case for all the people. When you have a lack of sincerity, when you don't build your own approach, your own proposals on a sincere basis, at a point of time, people can see it. So I think that my main success is this long-term approach and the fact that I built something consistent. I strongly believe in family life and this private life balance. I strongly believe in the fact that I wanted to have a job and my own independence before going to politics. And I always try to defend ideas in which I do believe. Some of these ideas were supposed not to be compatible in the classical French political life. So my specialty in the French political life was the at the same time policy. Taking one idea from the left and one idea from the right. But because I thought it was much more consistent. And it's true for the reforms we did and we are making on private sector and a lot of other reforms. As for your second question regarding how to create a sort of cross-fertilization between private and public experience, I think first my private experience provided me independence. I get a job. It's something totally different. When you have a job and you know that you can make your family happy and live without being involved in politics, you are much more independent. And being independent from pressures, from people, for me is the starting point to do what you believe in and to make useful things. Second, I think it provided me a better understanding of the private sector. And what I believe for Africa, I do believe it for France. The government, the state has a very important role to play. Because we organize a common life, we provide education, health, and we provide protection for people when they are in a difficult situation. But we need the private sector to provide energy, opportunities, hope, and this dynamic. And understanding the private sector, this dynamic, the entrepreneurship was useful to me as a politician and now as a president, precisely to try to accelerate this trend. And I want to tell you, and that's my message, my ad moment for France. Now in France, we are the country where you have the largest company in Europe. We call it the CAC 40. Some of them are in this room. That's a strength. We have large companies, very strong, very solid, used to work with especially African continent. That's the strength because they hire a lot of people. And I think what I want to do as a president is precisely to redevelop this win-win approach and to make them stronger. But we has, in the same time, the number one country in Europe in terms of entrepreneurship and startups creation. We have now the most vibrant ecosystem in terms of startup. And that's why I do believe in the exchange between our ecosystems. With new financing, new startups, new experience. That's why I do believe in this Digital Africa initiative. And that's probably where my experience in private life is now very useful to me. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's come here. Let's come here.
Hello. Good afternoon, President Macron. Thank you very much, Mr. Elumelu. My name is Chris Kwekowe. Just after I turned down a job offer from Microsoft in 2015, the Tony Elumelu.
From where?
Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was saying just after I turned down a job offer from Microsoft in 2015, the Tony Elumelu Foundation was the first body to give me a note of approval, so I am forever grateful. That being said, my question is, for very long, I mean, we've seen that foreign aid, right, isn't, at the end of the day, a sustainable tool to finance economies across Africa. My question is going to be the fact that, you find out that young entrepreneurs across the African continent actually care a lot more about access to trade. How are you and your government facilitating this process?
Access to trade. Yes. Access to trade.
Access to trade.
Okay.
I think your issues are trade and finance, because you spoke about financing. And I think your challenge, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tony, but is access to trade. I mean, access to all the markets and access to finance. I mean, first, when you are a Nigerian entrepreneur, you have a big advantage. Your market is huge. Your market is huge. And if you don't get access to market, I mean, it's, I'm sorry to be blunt, but it's the story of your politicians. I mean, that's the job of your government.
Where are the politicians in the room?
No, but
Senator.
that's the whole story of the government and politics. It's just that you should open the markets for new players. But that's a big issue everywhere. In my country, in Europe, in some segments, in some economic sectors, people say, I don't get sufficient access to this market because the old classical players just captured the market and made the regulation for themselves. So, first, your first market is a domestic market. Your domestic market is huge. I don't exactly know for your sector, but let's check if your market is totally free in terms of access, and if you don't have sort of over-regulation just dedicated to protect existing player. I mean, it's never good on the long run to over-protect existing player. Why? Because I do believe in the fact that you can accumulate success, money, and capital when the cause of this accumulation is innovation. Because it's your own merit. But if you accumulate profits because of a regulation and monopoly and so on, at a point of time, it's not acceptable for your people. Because it's how to divert regulation. So that's the first point in terms of market access. Second, I think what you need to have a better access to your regional markets is regional integration. I'm a strong believer of ECOWAS and market access and an actual regional approach. Obviously, Nigeria is a big champion in ECOWAS. But I think for young entrepreneurs and young leaders, ECOWAS is a good opportunity. And I think that's where it's good for us to work together, because all your neighbors, or quasi-totality of your neighbor, is Francophone. And they have now to work to make business in English. You have to make business in French, but you have to make this regional integration real. And I do believe in an ECOWAS where obviously free markets, free trade, free circulation, much more integration. It will be the decision of your government. But as far as I understood, sometimes there are some reluctance about that. And the key drivers of this reluctance could be pushed by those whose interest is a vested interest and largely to get the monopoly in the country. It's not good for the country and for you. And I have to say, some countries of ECOWAS, have a currency closely linked to euro, and especially the old franc français, the franc CFA. And I told them, I think if you want to change that, I'm ready to do so. I'm open. Because for me, this regional integration, at a point of time, will go to more integration, market access, and probably a sort of common currency in the whole region. We have to change the rules. We have to accept these ideas. For a lot of countries in the region, their main interest is in the region and not just directly with Paris. It's the old-fashioned. And third, access to trade opportunities beyond, i.e. in Africa and in Europe. It's a question mentioned by your colleague. I think to get market access, you need peace and stability. That's what we work on with a lot of governments. Second, you need a framework, and I do believe that what African Union decided in March in Kigali to launch this new initiative for free trade is a very good one. It's a very bold and very good one. And I think the more we can build common access and fair trade, the more we can do. But I want to insist on that for trade. I believe in openness, but on fair openness, which means you have to take into consideration social and environmental issues. And at the end, you have the financial constraint for an entrepreneur like you. You have a big chance in Nigeria because you have a lot of successful people. You have business angels. It's not the case in a lot of countries in the region. It's not the case. And you have people like Tony believing, and a lot of these leaders present in the room, believing in their ecosystem and investing in startups, in innovation in the country. And I want to thank them because what they do, it's not just for themselves an investment. It's for the country, the region, and for all of us. You need to scale, which means that we have to develop a financial ecosystem in the region as well, i.e. to encourage the development of VCs, of long-term investors. And what I would like to do through Digital Africa and our initiative for private sector is to participate with you to structure and to frame the financial ecosystem of West Africa, which is a necessity.
Let's clap for that. Let's clap if you have noted that. And interestingly, you're sitting next to Remy. Remy, note that very well. So here, okay.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Mr. Elumelu. I'm Josailu Fisher from Nigeria. I'm not a Tony Elumelu Foundation alumni, but I'm a UWIN. It's a government-funded initiative. I'm one of the winners for 2017. My question is this, based on my experience, that Mark Zuckerberg wouldn't have achieved all he's done today if he were in Nigeria. Yeah. So my question directly now is this. What is your advice, or how will you advise Nigerians to achieve their technological dreams in spite of so many challenges. For example, you mentioned innovation, government intervention, you mentioned access to funds. As a UN enterprise winner, since March, we've been given the training, but no funding yet. Electricity and other things. So what would be your advice? How youths and Nigerians can achieve their technological dreams in spite of so many challenges?
And what did Mark Zuckerberg say here?
No, you said that Mark Zuckerberg would not have succeeded if he were a Nigerian. How can Nigerians succeed?
Take it one by one.
Look, I addressed some part of your question, but let me share a conviction. We spoke about migrations. We spoke about very bold people, and when you speak and refer to precisely the American innovation ecosystem, you speak about a lot of people, and they were, not all of them were not totally Americans. Just for you to bear that in mind. It seems that Steve Jobs came from a family of Syrian refugees. So, it's just your nationality is not part of your ability to succeed.
Mr. President, can you repeat that? I'd like us to listen to that again, please. What you just said now.
No, my point is to say, it's not your nationality and your ID which will say you can succeed or not. Except if it's in your mind. So, I don't know your peculiar situation. And I'm not here to make an arbitrage between the government and Nigerian entrepreneurs. But I do believe that if you think for yourself that being a Nigerian makes you, in a certain way, unable to succeed, you will never succeed. Whoever you will be. Whatever your idea will be. Because precisely what you have to promote, what you have to do if you want to succeed, is to take this part of risk. And I have to say, precisely because you are a Nigerian, because you dare, you can become one of the greatest success of the upcoming century, because it's probably more difficult than in the United States. But to be clear with you, it's true that when you start as a startup in Nigeria, the precondition, the ecosystem, is less favorable than in the US on Silicon Valley. You're right. You're right. But if you succeed given this condition, if you dare, if you fight, if you don't persuade yourself that it's impossible because you are Nigerian, if you found allies, partners, financiers, if your ideas is the right one, and you succeed, I can tell you, you will be such a role model that you will convince a lot of people in the region. And Mark Zuckerberg or any other startups or leaders coming from Silicon Valley will not be the star here. You will be the star. Because you will be in a situation to embody that. So please, what I want to do is not to export my startups. I'm not teaching you or lecturing you saying, I want my startups to become your role model. What I think is good for Africa and for you is to build your own role model. So I have another way to answer your question. Mark Zuckerberg will never become Nigerian. And you live in Nigeria, and Nigeria has to succeed. So please, just invent the new Mark Zuckerberg being Nigerian, Senegalese, Malian, and so on and so on. That's what Africa needs. No complex.
Ladies and gentlemen, just one last comment, just 30 seconds, because the President has been standing. It's been a long day for Mr. President. Mr. President, we have one of our prides here. We have Jim Ovia, the founder of Zenith Bank, a great entrepreneur. Jim, say something. You have the floor. Take 30 seconds. No, from the President. You see? This red and this red, I don't know which one is.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, we feel so glad that you are able to come to Nigeria to inspire our youths. I know when I spoke to my brother Tony and he told me about this wonderful idea, I said, look, I'm not a youth, but he said, no, I should come.
You look like one.
I said, I'm truly not a youth, I'm more like a father or a grandfather. He said I should come, and I feel very happy. I would have missed a lot if I didn't come. You are very inspirational, and I have to thank you so much for coming to inspire all of us. And I have even more ideas from what I've learned more by coming here, so I can also help to empower others. And Tony,
thank you.
Tony himself, the founder of Today Elumelu Foundation, he's a brilliant young guy, very brilliant, and we are extremely very proud of him for participating and coming up with brilliant ideas that will empower so many youths in the country. And hopefully some of my children will register this Today Elumelu Foundation. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. What? Mr. President, 30 seconds, okay? Okay, go ahead, 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
Hello. Hello, Mr. President. I'm a Tony Elumelu entrepreneur from 2015. I'm from Sierra Leone. My business uses drones to monitor construction projects. It's very good to hear the news of the AFD investment in African entrepreneurs and you raising that amount to $1 billion. And I would just like to say thank you, Mr. President, for making this commitment. And we look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Notes?
Remy, perhaps just to explain.
Good morning, everybody. Pleased to be here with the President. Just to tell you that we will sign with Tony an agreement right now. The idea is to build on the entrepreneurship program of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. And to connect it with our financial instruments. So we will provide through UBA guarantees up to 70% of the loans for the new entrepreneurs. We will also provide links, connections with AFD colleagues for mentorship. And we will also do studies to understand what the winners of the program will become and to become role models, as the President said. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's clap again for President Emmanuel Macron. Standing ovation. Standing ovation. Standing ovation. Standing ovation. Okay. Okay. Let's sign quickly.
That's all. And we're good.
Jean-Yves. So they are signing the agreement that Mr. Ryu just described.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Once again, a big round of applause for His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of France, and the Chairman, Mr. Tony Elumelu. A big round of applause as they exit the building. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Can we have some music, please? And we'll continue the networking as we walk around. Thank you.